Hey everyone, in this video we're going to discuss and demonstrate how to build a property management app. This application is going to have several portals for our property management company, which will be able to manage all of our buildings and units and leases and stuff like that. So this will also be a multi-part video. The first video is going to be quite long, and then in the second video we're going to expand further and go into more details about whatever it is that we're building. So to get started, let's first discuss what our objectives are. Our property management app is going to have 3 different portals. One of the portals will be the public portal. The public portal is going to be where anybody on the internet can access and see the list of all the available units that we have at all of our properties, see advanced details about it. So if there's some things we want to show them only on like a details page, we could show that to them, and also submit a form to be contacted about that specific unit. The second portal we're going to have is going to be the admin, and this is going to be kind of like the God view where you could see everything. So the admin will be able to manage all of their buildings, add and manipulate the units within each building and see the status of each unit. Also keep track of all the maintenance requests, the leases, contact requests, and anything else really that can be done would be able to be done from this admin portal. And finally, we're also going to have a tenant portal. The tenant portal is going to be for the actual tenant to log into their app, see their specific units, meaning units that are assigned to them that they're currently leasing. They'll be able to submit maintenance requests. And once they do submit maintenance requests, they'll be able to track the status of each request. So let's see what that's going to ultimately end up looking like. And let's take a look first at the tenant portal. So here we are logged in as a tenant, and we are a tenant of Suite 2400 in this specific building. And we'll be able to go inside the details of this page and add maintenance requests for this unit that we're in. We'll also be able to then see the details of each of these maintenance requests. And in our next video, we'll add more functionality where we can add notes and keep track of additional information. That's pretty much it for the tenant portal. The public portal is going to be somewhat simpler. It's going to just have a list of all of our units. And again, this is our first video. In our next video, we're going to add pictures and make this a little bit more visually appealing. But we'll have a list of all of our units. We can click on the details for each of the units and then submit a form to be contacted, which will automate an email to the person in charge of the building as well as to whoever submits the form. That's pretty much it right now for this first part of the video for what's going to be in the public portal. And now from the admin portal, we'll have all of our buildings. For each of the building, we'll have a lot of information about how many vacant units there are, how many occupied, and what's under construction. We'll also have a picture, a map, and some additional information about the building's units. And from within the units page, we're going to have all of our units, and the details of each of the unit will be able to also track, any service requests using a calendar. Also, any maintenance requests using a table. And if we have any contact requests, that'll show up on the bottom on a Kanban table. And finally, we'll see all of our maintenance requests also and the status of each of these maintenance requests. Okay, so let's dive right in and get started. And let's see how quickly we can build this fully functional database web application. Okay, so the first table we want to add is going to be the buildings table. This will be the table where we manage all the buildings that are being managed by this company. So we're going to create a new table. We'll call it buildings, and we'll choose an icon just to make things look pretty as always. And we're going to just click save. As you can recall from maybe some other videos, if you've watched some other videos, you can do quick add to easily add fields this way. You could import your CSV, or you can add fields in line by just choosing the name and the type of field that it is. But we're just going to do this all manually. So we're going to have our first thing is going to be the building name. We're going to then have the building address, and you can customize which fields show up here inside the form when you add and view addresses. We're just going to keep this as a default. And we'll add some additional details. For example, year built. And let's say we're going to have some other information here also, which we will end up getting based on the units that are connected to the building. And we'll go over that in 1 minute. For example, things like things like how many square feet and how many units and things like that. I think for now we'll just add one more field and we'll use a radio field and we'll call this space use, and this will be for what kind of space this is going to be. So we'll say we have retail, and let's add a new one, and office. Let's do one more commercial. And let's go ahead and save. So these are the 4 columns, the 5 columns that we need in our table. If you go to the records now, you can see these columns here. The next thing we want to do is add units that belong to each building. So each of these buildings will have spaces, like a suite 100 and suite 101, or however you call it. We'll call this here units. And we're going to do save. We'll have the unit name. Looks like I misspelled that, so let me just correct that. Unit name. This will be the unit, the number, unit name and number, let's say. And here we want to make a connection to the building that this unit belongs in. So we're going to add a new connection and connect this to the building. And we want one unit connects to one building. It looks like the spelling didn't correct itself. Let's refresh the page and see if that corrects it. I believe it's because here we have it saved as unite. One unit. Okay, so we have a unit name and the building. Let's add a few more fields here. For example, square footage and price per square foot. Oftentimes, these units will also come with a marketing brochure or a flyer, so we're going to just add that here also. Flyer, and this will be a PDF or some other sort of document where we have this information. And the last field we need here will be a rich text where we have the actual description of each unit, which will be kind of something to give more details about this unit, the selling points and things like that. So now we have our basic structure, and we're going to obviously be expanding a lot on this as we move forward. But we have our buildings and our units, and to get started, we're going to create a new page in the page builder. Once we have all our data structure laid out in the page builder, we'll go and create a new page, and we'll call this buildings. And we're going to choose to add this to the default layout and to the top menu on the very top of the page. So now when you preview, I'm going to close this. When you preview your page, you will see the buildings page, which is nothing in it right now because we didn't actually add anything in this page. We're going to add a new component, a new table, and we want to see the buildings, and we're going to choose to customize it so we can make it fit exactly to whatever we're trying to do. And we want the building name, the address, the year built, and the space use, meaning the kind of space that it is. And we also want to see a details page of more information about this record. Finally, in the options, we're going to add an inline option to add a new building. And I will show you what this does in 1 second. So when I do save and I refresh the page here, you can see we have our buildings table with all those columns that we added. And then we can add a new building right here. When we went into the options, the table, we say allow new record pop-up. That's basically enables this. And here you can add a new page, a new record directly here. So now let's go ahead and add our first unit. Now, as you can see, when you start typing in the address, it'll try to fill it in for you, and it'll save all the fields into whatever fields they belong in. And we'll say this was built in 1960, and this is an office, or let's say this is a retail space. And now when you click save, it adds that record right into here. And inside the details page, by clicking on details, it takes you to a child page where you can see more information about this specific building. If you can recall, we also added a few minutes ago the table for the units, so we can keep track and see all the units that belong to each building. What we'd like to do here is now add a table of all the units in this building. So we're going to go back into the page builder and we're going to open up the details page for this building. And we're going to add a new row, and we're going to add inside this row a new component with a table of all the units connected to this page. And again, we're going to do customize, so we can customize this page. We want the table title to be units, and we want to add these columns into the table. We also want the ability to add a new unit directly here that's going to be connected to this page. So let me show you what that means. Now, if we refresh that page, we have here for this building, we have these units, which we don't have any units yet. We'll add a new unit. We'll call this first floor, and we'll say the square footage is 9,500 square feet and it's $30 a year per square foot. We can add some cool description here, like okay, we can even add, this is the WYSIWYG editor, so you can kind of customize it however you like. I'm going to go ahead and click save. We didn't add a flyer, so it's not going to be here. But now we have our first building with one unit inside that building. So far, this is very, very basic, and we're going to be adding a lot to this, so we're just getting started. So our next item that we'd like to do is going to be to keep track from the actual buildings page how many square feet are in each building. So we want to summarize all the square footage from all the units that are connected to this building. And we'll do that by going back to the buildings page. We'll add a number field and we'll say the sum. We want to say total square footage. And we want to sum all of the units square footage, meaning we have to choose a number field to sum. And we're going to save that. And back in the page builder now, we actually need to add that column manually. It doesn't automatically add. So we're going to just do total square footage for this building. And as you can see, we have the total square footage is 9,500. If we add another unit, we'll say this one is the second floor. We'll say this is 5,000 square feet and it's $27 a square foot. I'm not going to add any descriptions now, but as you can see, now we have a total of 95 plus 5,000. So if we go back to the buildings, we could see that there's a total of 14,500 square feet in this building. Okay, so now in the details page of this building, we're going to want to add a map on the right side of this page. So next to the building information, we could see a map of where this building is located. We're going to do that by going back into the builder, and on the details page of this building, we're going to shrink the column which has all the details information. And on the right side of that, we're going to add a new column and expand that so it's the full width of the page, and then click save. Now we're going to add the single map component, which you can find here. So the map component adds a map which will have a sidebar with all of the other locations. Here we just want to add a single map, and we want this width to be, let's say, 500 pixels. And for the address field, it should use the address field. We only have one address field, but for the map to work, it only works if you have an address field inside that table. And we're going to go ahead and save it and refresh our page. And now you will see the map on the right side of the page. It looks like it's a little bit too wide. So we'll just shrink this column and expand this one and save. And now it should hopefully fit correctly inside the page. Still not perfect, but we can customize that by just changing the width and the height of the map. You can see this map is quite zoomed out, so I'm going to go back into here and zoom level, change this to, let's make this about 16, so it'll be pretty zoomed in. It's basically from 1 to 20, that's the zoom levels, so 16 is pretty far in. Okay, now going forward, we're going to continue tweaking our app and making it a little bit more usable. So if you can recall, we have our buildings and the units. Each unit is connected to a specific building, and we don't have any way to track what the status of each unit is. So we want to know if it's vacant, if it's already occupied, or if it's under construction. And to do that, we're going to go back into the data builder in the units table, and we're going to add a radio option, and we'll call this status. And you can add items here by either clicking on the plus sign or you can do quick edit, clear out whatever's in there, and then just start entering the values and then press enter. So one value per line. In this case, we want to do available, or let's do vacant, occupied, and under construction. Make sure you click save. And we could enable the color badges, which will give it a nice color. So in this case, we want these colors. And if you go to the page builder again and we go into the details of the building, we're going to add this column back in here. So I'm going to add the status column and click save. Go back here and refresh. You'll see we now have the status column here. The status column is blank, so we're going to want to enter some information here to keep track of the status of each unit. We could do that several ways. For this purpose, I'm going to enable inline editing, so I can just click right here inside the cell, and it will allow me to edit the value. And I'm going to click into the units data table, and under the options, I'm going to enable inline editing. Now, when you refresh the page, you're going to have an option to edit it inline, and I will do this one is occupied, and this one is vacant. Before we keep going and adding additional functionality, I want to add a few more features in this app that will make the app look a little more pleasing. For example, I want to add a picture with each building. So whenever we look at all our buildings, we could see it with pictures and not just tables, which are organized but not as neat or cool looking. So back in the builder, in the data builder, anytime you need to make any changes to the actual structure of your app, meaning the structure of the data, you got to go into the data builder. And here we're going to add an image file, call this the photo. And we're going to save that. And we can actually do this from here, even just update a new photo. So for this property, for example, we're going to, let me find the picture for this property. Here we go. I'm just copying it from the other tab, and I'm going to upload this, and I'm going to select to choose from the web address. Here is our location, update, and now we have a picture saved for this location. So now back in the builder, in the page builder, we wanted to add a picture here for each building. We'll do that by going into the details page, and inside the details component, I'm going to shrink this column. And I will add an additional column right here. We're going to put all these fields in here. And in the first column, we're going to add the photo. We'll hide the title and updates. Now when we refresh the page, we can see the picture with the information. Just 2 or 3 more things that we want to do whenever we add a building. We have a page where we add these buildings, and it's a page that doesn't have all the fields that we have in the builder. So we actually added here the photo field, and we want to make sure we add that also whenever somebody adds a new building. So we're going to go to the add building page, and here we're going to add the photo field so they can choose a photo whenever they add a new building. You can see how that works. When you refresh the page, new building, you can see we have now the photo field here. A lot of demonstrating what can be built here requires having some data within the app. So I'm going to add a bunch of buildings and a bunch of units, and then I will fast forward it while you're watching it so you don't have to be bored with the manual data entry. Now, obviously, if I had a spreadsheet with all this data, I would just import it. That would take a few seconds, but I'm just going to add 3 or 4 more records and then keep going with the video. Okay, so I just added a whole bunch of buildings and a whole bunch of units within each building. I forgot to do the status on this one, so I will just update the statuses on these. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So now we have all these units, and some of them are vacant, some are occupied, and within each of these buildings, we could see all the square footage for each unit. It would be very helpful if we could also see the total units within each building. But instead of just seeing the total units, here we can see we have 4 units, but some are vacant, some are occupied, and some under construction. We want to see here the total based on their category, and we'll do that by adding additional fields. So inside the buildings table, we're going to add new fields, and we'll call this one the count field, and we want to know total vacant. And for this, we want to know the count of records from the units, but we want to add a data condition. We only want to add the units that the status is vacant. Let's go ahead and save that. And we're going to do the same thing for the other fields as well. It looks like I did a vacant. We're going to do this also for occupied and under construction. So we're going to do, again, count total occupied, and we want to only count the total records where status is occupied. Let's save that. And finally, one more is going to be under construction. And we will count all the records of the unit, the same exact thing, where the status is under construction. We're going to add all these fields inside our page builder. Okay, so now we have our 3 fields. We're looking at records here. We can see for each of these buildings how many are under which category. We'll just add these fields into the page builder so we can see those right from the buildings table. I'm going to add those 3 columns. We'll move the details column all the way to the right, and instead of saying total, we'll just say vacant. We'll just change the titles of them so it doesn't take up as much room on the table. And construction. Let's save that, resave that again, and refresh our page. You will see we now have 3 additional columns for vacant, occupied, and construction. So you can see that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we go into the details here, we can see we have 1 vacant, 2 occupied, and 1 under construction. Within each of these units, there is a square footage amount and then a price per square foot. So we could also calculate the total, how much it would cost to rent this per month based on this. And we could do that there are 2 ways that we can actually do this. One would be using a basic formula. So if you go back to the data builder and under the units, we can add a very simple formula to do something like this. We go into number and we say basic formula, and we choose the field. We want the square footage times the price, and that will calculate the total square footage times the price, how much that would be per month. Now, I'm showing you this, but this is not actually accurate. If you can see here, this is $50 a month. This is $50 actually per year for 5,000 square feet, meaning our actual price would be $50 times 5,000 divided by 12, because this is the price per year per square foot. So we can actually just update that by adding parentheses. Let me just correct that. So we're going to put that here at the end, and then put that into brackets, into parentheses, I'm sorry, and then we're going to divide that by 12. Let's resave that, and that should reflect a more accurate price per month. We called this field basic formula, but we want this to be called monthly lease. We also want this to be formatted as a currency. And now I could see that I did this as a suffix again, but I will just change this to prefix. So the $ will come up before the amount. Okay, so we have our buildings, we have our units, and now we want to advertise all the available units on our homepage. Whenever somebody comes to our default page, which is the first page that they come onto when they get to our site, we want to show them all the available units. Let's go and do that back in the page builder. We're going to edit this default page where we can just as easily add a new one and then set it as a default page. I'll just edit this. Let me delete everything in this page. And we're going to add a new row. And in this row, we're going to add, I guess the best way to do this would be a list of all the units. We want to show the unit name, the building location, square footage, and monthly lease, let's say. Refresh this page. Now we can see all of our units. This looks pretty bad, so we want to organize this, make it look a little nicer. We're going to go to the options and format this as 4 columns and show 12 records per page. But we also want to add the status field, and I will show you why. Finally, I'm also going to change this layout to do a bordered box. That'll keep each of these records contained within a nice border. So let's refresh that, and now we've gone to something that looks a little like this, which is a little nicer. Now, as you can tell, this is listing all of the units that are available. I'm sorry, all the units that we have, even if they're not available. For example, under construction, we should not be listing it here. We only want to list units that are vacant. So we're going to go back to the units page on the data source. We're going to filter it to say only show records that match the following. And we want to say where status is vacant. And we don't need to also show that it's vacant here. So I'll remove this field from the page and I will go ahead and save it. Let's refresh it. And now you can see it's only showing units that are vacant. So when somebody sees a unit they want, they're going to need to click on it and then request to see the unit or whatever it is that we want the next step to be. Right now, they're just seeing all the available units on one page. We want them to actually have a follow-up action. And we're going to do that by going back into the builder and adding a details page within the details of, within the list. And what that will do is it'll add a details page inside this page. So right here, you can see now that this unit 2403, which is vacant, has a details page, which takes us to another page that has all the additional information. Perhaps the best way to do this would be that once they're looking at all the information about the unit, we could also include a form on the right side where they can request additional information or request to be contacted by whoever it is that's running this business. So we'll do that by going back into the data builder, and we're going to add a new table and call this requests. Let's call this contact requests. Let's make this like a phone. Okay. And we want this contact request to be connected to a specific unit. So we're going to have to create a connection to the unit. And we're going to connect this to the units, so the unit name. Let's move this to the top. And this is going to be the person's name. Let's actually just name it name. And we want to keep track of a few things that we want to ask this person for: their email address and their phone number. So again, right here, we want to add this form asking for this information. We're going to go back into the page builder, and inside the details of this page on the right side, we're going to shrink this column so we can add a new column on the right side. And here we're going to add a form. Now, we want to add a form that is automatically connected to this details page, meaning to this unit. So this is unit 2403. Whenever somebody submits a form from this page, it's automatically connected to unit 2403. And we do that by adding a form. When you add a new form, you have the option to either update this record. So if I choose update this unit, it's simply going to update these values, which we don't want to do. Instead, we want to insert a new contact request for this unit. And we're going to customize this. We're going to ask them for their name, email, and phone number. Let's make all these fields required. And let's go ahead and save it. Now when we refresh the page, we have here a contact request form. We have here back to default landing page. We don't want to show that. I'm going to go back into the options of the form and just hide that. Refresh this page, and here we go. If we try to submit it, it says that these fields are required. And if we actually put in real information, we can now see that this form was successfully submitted. Nothing happened except for the fact that it's saved it in the database. If you go to the records, you can see that we have a new record saved in the database. This won't be enough for us because we actually want to do something and be notified whenever something is submitted. So we're going to go to the form and we're going to say whenever this form is submitted, someone clicks save, automatically send us an email and send them an email as well. And we're going to do that inside the page builder. In the details page, we're going to open up that form. And on the left side under emails, we're going to say add a new email. And we're going to make this a custom email. We're going to say the following: send an email to a custom email. So we could say either custom email or it could be a field of an email, but this will be custom email. And we'll just say this will go to admin@tadabase.io, assuming this is the person in charge of his building. And from will be app@tadabase.io, and from email would be and here we're basically saying for the subject, set the subject to the unit name and then the request contact. So we're just saying like this person, this unit, there's a request, a contact request for this unit. And now we can add whatever we want inside the body of the email. In this case, it'll be, we want to say, hey, admin, this person Now we're saying anytime somebody submits a form, send an email to admin@tadabase.io with from this person, from this name, and then from this email with this information. So when we save this and go back in here, refresh the page and submit this request again. So we're going to say test2 and save. Now behind the scenes, an email was just sent to the admin. It actually appears like the email did not go through. I haven't gotten it yet. And I went back into the builder and I had accidentally mixed up the from name. I put in the email address here, and here I put in the name instead of the email. I corrected that, and then the email did work. I did get an email confirming that that this request was made. For our use case, we also probably want to add an email also notifying whoever it is that's requesting this, letting them know that, hey, we got your email. We're going to get back to you as soon as we can. So we could do that as well by adding a second email. And here we'll do the same type of thing. We'll say send this, but instead of giving it a custom email, we're going to want to say send it to a field. We want the email field. So we have one email field here. If you can recall, we have the email field inside the form. So we're saying send this email to that email field and send it from property app. And this could obviously be whatever you want it to be. And here we're going to choose the field of their name. We'll just let them know that we received their email and someone will get back to them as soon as possible. So now whenever somebody submits this form, 2 emails are going to be sent out. The first email will be going to the admin. The second one will go directly to the person who requested this form, meaning the person who entered their email in here. So now that we have a very basic shell built out of our data structure, we're going to want to continue and make it a little bit more user focused to make sure that certain users see whatever they need to see while others don't see information they shouldn't. For as an example, in our use case, we have this buildings table, which has all the units. And here we have all the units and all their statuses. we probably don't want the whole world to see this. Some things here might be confidential. So we're going to start securing this app and dividing our database into different, dividing our pages and design into different layouts. And what we're going to be doing is we have here one layout, which is called a default layout. We're going to add another layout, and one layout is going to be for the admins, and one layout is going to be just for the general public, and then we'll add a third layout a little bit later. So here we're going to call this new layout admin layout, and we're going to move the buildings by going to the settings, and we're going to say move this to the admin layout. So when somebody comes to our default landing page, when they come to our default landing page, we're not going to want them to see all this table with all the buildings and some additional information like how many are occupied and things like that. We don't want them to see that. So inside this buildings page, we're going to secure it. We also want to remove, you see here in the top of this page, we have the buildings. We want to remove that from that layout. We're going to go to the default layout, go to the menu, and we're going to delete that menu item and then save it. Okay, so now this is what the general public is going to see when they come to our site. They're going to see all of the units, the details of each unit, and they can submit a contact request form. Now we're going to work a little bit on what the admin is going to see and how they're going to work. We're going to want the admin to have full rights to make any changes and change the status of each unit, add additional units and buildings, pretty much what we've done until now. So in this first admin layout, we have here the page container, and then all the pages that are below the layout will be viewed inside this page container. So on top of this page container, we want to add a menu. So I'm going to move that up to the top, and here I'm going to choose to add a menu. I'm going to call this buildings. I think that's good. And we'll add another menu item maybe here called units. You know what? We haven't actually added that page yet, so we'll do that in 1 minute. Okay, so now we can preview this page by clicking the preview icon. It looks like I have started adding a menu item and didn't finish. Let me just go ahead and delete that entirely. Now let's go ahead and refresh and buildings. So we're going to have all our buildings, and let's add a new page now for all of the units. We'll choose this under the admin layout. And here we're going to just add a simple table of all the units. We're going to do the unit, the building. Let's just put all of the information that we want to do here. And we also want to have a page to view more details about this unit. Once we have this page with all the units on it, we just need to add this page to our menu. We'll go to the layout of the admin, and inside the menu, we'll add a new item, and we'll call this one units. And this will link to the units page. Here, we'll try to see if we can find a nice icon that matches. I guess we'll stick with something similar, like apartment. And let's go ahead and refresh our admin page. And now you can see we have buildings and units. Within here, I can see the details for each unit. So here we can see the details. Now, if you can recall, before we had a page where visitors can request to be contacted. So we're just going to add this form, this table on the bottom of all the requests that we've been receiving. And we'll do that in the details of the unit. We're going to add a new row. And in this row, we'll add a table with all of the contact requests. Okay, let's customize that. Contact request, we want their name, their email, and the phone number. And let's go ahead and save that. Let's refresh the page, and now we can see Suite 2403 had a whole bunch of requests. These were some tests I was doing. If we go to a different unit, we should probably not see any requests because nothing was done on those units. If we go back to the page with the units that had the unit with all the requests, which was this one, we see here we have the name, the email, and the phone number of who made the request, but we don't know the status of where we're holding with this person. So We're going to now make some changes here. We'll change this table and make it look a little different to match our needs. And what we want to do is we want to keep the status of each request. So in the contact requests, we're going to add a radio field with the status, and we're going to add 3 options. So these 3 options of open, in progress, and done. And let's make some changes to each of these so I can show you why we're doing this. Let's just put some in each column. So we have some open, some in progress, some done. And now on the bottom of this page, we want to keep track of all the requests and know the status of each one. But instead of having it just in a table, we're going to do it in a Kanban table. And if we open the details page, I'm going to delete this component. And I'm going to add a Kanban view. And here we're going to say we want to see the contact requests. Now we want to know their name, the email, the phone number, and we want to group it by the status. So we want a Kanban field will be the status. And let's go ahead and save this. Now this won't look that pretty yet, but we'll tweak this and make it fit better to our needs. So you can see this looks pretty messy. What we're going to do now is add some colors and align the table a little nicer. First thing is, when working with Kanban, sometimes it requires a page to be full width. So we'll change this page container to fluid. And what that would do is, as you can tell now, it's taking up this much of the page. When we change it to fluid, it'll now take up the whole width of the page. Now we have all of our items here. So in the Kanban, we don't want to see anything that's uncategorized, so we're going to hide that. And then we also want to see a color for each of these items. So we'll say open will be something like red, in progress orange, and then for done will be blue. We'll move, actually this is the right order for us. And we'll say the column width would be, let's say 25%. And let's save. Now when we refresh our page, we have a nicer looking Kanban view so we can see what's going on with each of these statuses. Okay, now we're going to continue adding more functionality here with users being able to log in and be assigned a specific unit. So for example, whoever is currently leasing Suite 2403 should be able to log in and then submit a service request for that unit. And after we finish that, we'll come back and do more work on the admin side where we actually deal with these service requests. So we'll do that by going back to the users in the users menu in the builder, and we're going to add additional roles. And these will be so we can start assigning which users can see which pages. And we'll add a new role. We'll call the first role tenants. We'll have another role here called admins. And finally, we'll have the third role. The final role will be employees. And each of these will have different purpose of what we're going to be doing with them. So since each of these units are going to be assigned to a specific tenant, we're going to go into the data builder in the units, and we're going to connect it to the users. And we're going to call this field tenant. We're going to say this unit connects to the users, meaning the users table. We're calling the field tenant, and we're going to choose their name. And now, just for the purposes of demonstrating this, we're going to add a new user. We'll call this first person tenant1. We'll give them a password. Let's make it tenant1 so we can actually keep track of which one we're dealing with. And we'll say this person is a tenant. So now we have our first tenant. And whenever we go in the data builder, we can set this unit and connect. So we're going to set that unit 2400 belongs to tenant1. Now what we want to do is make sure that when this tenant logs in, he could see any information about his unit as well as submit support tickets. We have so far a public layout. We call it default layout, but I'm actually going to change this to public layout. This is for users who are not logged into the app. And for this purpose, we're going to add a new layout, and we're going to call this Tenant Layout. And in this page, we're going to add a new menu, a new page with units. So suppose one tenant has multiple units, they'll be able to see all the units that's assigned to them, and we'll have a table here with all the records that are connected to the logged in unit, to the logged in user, and we want to see all the units that are connected to the user. We're going to want to see the unit name, their building, the square footage, and let's just say the monthly lease. We'll also want to see the record details page, and we'll call this my units, meaning this is only the units of the user who's logged in. So if we preview this page now, there's no units found because we're not logged in and cannot see any units. The easiest way to do this would be to secure this page and say only users who are tenants can see this page. And now when we refresh this page, it's going to be locked. We're not going to be able to see it. So if we log in now with tenant1 at tadabase.io and the password that we specified, we'll be able to see Suite 2400 is our unit. And we go into the details page and we could see any information about this unit that we have here. Now this is a new layout and we haven't added a menu to the top of it, so I will do that now. I'm going to add a new menu and we'll call this my units. And we'll find some icon we can use for this. We'll do a heart. And let's move this to the top of the page so it's not on the bottom of the page. Now when we refresh our page, we will have my units and we can see all of our units. Now part of the access we want to give these users who are logged in is to be able to submit support tickets and see the status of their tickets for each of their units. And we'll do that very similarly to how we made the other form, where we had a form on the right side where users can contact the admin, or I'm sorry, the whoever's in charge of that unit. So we're going to do inside the data builder, we're going to add a new table and we'll call this maintenance requests. And we'll just do this manually again. We'll make this one title. And we'll have a long text to explain the issue. We'll want the date issue. We keep track of when this ticket was submitted. And let's add an auto increment so we can give each of these maintenance requests a number. So we'll call this request ID. We'll start it at 500. And finally, we'll add a radio field to also keep track of the status. And open pending resolved. Let's go ahead and save that. And that's pretty much it, except we haven't actually connected each of these to a unit. So we need to add a connection to the unit. And we're going to say the data table is the unit. We also want to keep track of who added this issue. So we're going to add another connection field to the submitted by to the user. And this will be the users table. So whenever somebody submits this ticket, we'll be able to keep track of who submitted it. Okay, just as a friendly little tip, if you go to the settings and under the support, you can look at the table connection graph and you can kind of see what our current structure of the app is. So for example, we have our maintenance requests, which connects to the unit and to the users table, so we can keep track of who submitted it. And we have our contact requests, which also just connects to the unit. And you can just kind of see as your app gets more complicated, sometimes you have to refresh your memory as to what the actual database structure looks like. So you can go here to the support and see that. Back in the pages in the details page, we're going to add a form on the bottom, and we're going to put a form on the right side. We're going to say insert a new maintenance request. And we want to give them option to add the title, the issue, And that's pretty much it. We're going to automate everything else. And let me show you a quick example of what that means. So here on the side, we're going to have the table of all of the records connected to this page. We want to see all of the maintenance requests. And we'll do the title, the issue, date of issue, all the other fields. So now if we refresh this, we have here a maintenance request form. We could put in the title. And we save it. We could see this information is here. So we could see the unit was automatically saved. The status was not, the date was not, and the submitted by was not. And to automatically update this information, we'll go back into here and use the record rules to save that information automatically. So we'll go to the form rules, record rules. We're going to add a new rule. We're going to say set the date of issue to the current date. Set the submitted by to the auto logged user. And finally, set the status to open. So now when we add a new issue, it'll automatically save that information without us having to enter it. And now you can see, since we're logged in as tenant 1, it automatically submitted it by tenant 1, and all this other information is automatically saved here. Okay, so we have all of our information about how to add requests, and we have all of our units. We're going to add another page here so we can actually track the requests without having to go to the unit itself. So assuming one user has multiple units, they'll be able to just see my requests, and we'll do that at the top here. We'll add another page called my requests, and we'll set this in the tenant layout. And here we will add a table of records connected to this logged in user. We want to see only requests that were submitted by this logged in user. Customize this, and we'll show all the fields. Okay, and then in the tenant layout, we're going to just add that right here to the top. We'll link this to the My Requests page. We'll save it and refresh. You get the drill, and you can see all of the requests that were made by this tenant. Now, there were 2 requests here, because here we're showing all the requests that were made in this unit, but this wasn't filled in. We didn't automatically fill in the tenant 1. That's why when you go to My Requests, it's not showing up. But now any future requests we do here will automatically show up there. So if we do another one and then save, when you go to My Requests, you will see that. Now, when we're looking at the requests, it would be nice if we could see an alarm or some notification to let us know that, hey, this status, this request was made, a certain amount of time ago, and it's still open. It should really be resolved sooner. We could do that by going and using display rules. So if you go back into the tenant layout and you go to My Requests, we're going to add a rule that says as follows. We're going to say set the date of issue. We're going to set a display rule. And we're going to say if date of issue is before the previous 5 days, then set the text color to red. And you can add additional actions, including set the text style to bold, or you could even do an icon. So display an icon of, let's just say we do alert. And let's make the icon red as well. And let's go ahead and save that. Save this as well. Let's refresh this page. And now these dates of these issues are in the 24th, so it's not, doesn't meet the alarm, doesn't meet the display rule. But if we change this manually for a second, under the maintenance requests, and let's set this back to a while ago. And now when you refresh our page, you'll see that this now has a display rule to trigger some different views. So to make sure these issues get resolved, we're actually it just occurred to me that we would probably only want to show that the date of issue if date of issue is that plus the status is not resolved. If it's resolved, then we don't want to show that alarm. So if we update that and save it again and then refresh, here it's still open. So assuming we change that first item, and we're going to change it manually, we'll change this to resolved. This should remain the same, which it does. It would be very critical, obviously, for our admins to also be able to see all these issues. So whoever is logged in from the company's perspective should be able to see all these issues from here as well. So we're going to add a new component on top of the Kanban table with, let's use a table, and we'll say we want all the records connected to this building. We want all the maintenance requests connected to this unit. And we're going to choose the title, the issue, date of issue, just basically all the fields. And let's go ahead and save that. So now whenever somebody's from the admin is viewing this page, they can see, let's say we go to Suite 2400, which is that tenant. We go into the details and we can see all the maintenance requests for that particular unit. We can obviously add the display rules here as well, so they could be informed of which issues are still outstanding, and we can add a new page here so they could see all the maintenance requests, which we should probably do. So let's call a new page maintenance request. This will be in the admin layout, and here we will add a page with all of the maintenance requests. When you do quick add, it gives you some options to add components a little quicker. So it gives you options, for example, to add an additional maintenance request, which we're not going to allow. But we could see the details of the maintenance. We could also don't need to do that also. But once we do that, you could see more options depending on the data structure of your app. So we're just going to do quick add and then save it and go back into the layout of the menu inside the layout. And we're going to do here, we're going to set this to maintenance request and add an icon just to make things look cool. And we're going to save that. Refresh our page, and now we can see all the maintenance requests, not just for one unit, but for all the units. In our case, we only have one unit, which is why we're not seeing more than these 3 records, but technically you should see all the requests that are here. So from here, we want to see more information about either the unit or the tenant, and we want to do that by clicking on Suite 2400, which should take us, when we click here, we want it to take us to the details page of this unit. And let's do that by going into the maintenance requests page. And under the unit, we're going to edit it and say the link value, send it to the unit's details page. Now we had several because we named a few pages units. Probably not the smartest thing to do. But if we do this now, we go here to units, we click on the Suite 2400, it'll take us to the details of this unit. And these are all the same unit, which is why it's going to take us all to the same page, obviously. Let's also add on the right side here a calendar where we could see all of the maintenance requests by the date that they've been added. So we're going to go into the units, and inside the details of the units page, we're going to shrink the details, and we will add on the right side a new column. This new column will be a calendar of all the records connected to this page. So we want to see all of the maintenance requests. We're going to customize it, and we want a few things. You know, before I show you what those options are, let me first show you how it looks now. So now we have here our details, and here we have all our maintenance requests inside a calendar view. I'm going to just expand this a little bit because this can be smaller and this can certainly be bigger. Let's save that and refresh. And here we have our beautiful calendar. We wanted to make sure that when somebody clicks here, they see details about the request. So to do that, we're going to go into the calendar, and under the details view, we're going to add the title, the issue, the date of issue, and let's say submitted by. We don't want to allow moving or changing the calendar. So for example, right now you can move something to a different date. So we'll disable that, enable drag and drop. And we also don't want them to allow them to add new records from within here. So we're going to do save and then refresh. And now when we click on that, we can see additional information about each of these maintenance requests. What would be helpful when looking at a calendar view is to see based on colors the status of each of these issues. So here we have 2 issues. The third issue is not showing up because it seems like it doesn't have a date. That's why. So let's go ahead and give that a date. Let's give this a date of 10/15. Let's refresh this page. So now we have our 3 issues here. So we wanted to show different colors based on the status of the issue. And let's go back into the page builder. We can go into the details, open up this calendar, and we're going to add a color rule. We're going to say that if the status is open, then that's not a good thing. It needs to be resolved. So we'll set it to red. And if the status is resolved, then set it to a nice happy green. Let's go ahead and save that and refresh the page. And now using colors, we can see that we have something that's not resolved and something that is resolved. We haven't yet secured these pages, which we're on right now, for only the admins can see it. So right now we're logged in as a tenant. We should not be able to see this. And we'll go here into the buildings and we're going to start securing these pages. We're going to say only users who are admins can see this page. Also, all the unit pages can only be seen by users who are admins. And finally, the maintenance requests can only be seen by users who are admins. And we have to do this also for every child page. So the details page as well. We're going to want to secure those also to only people who are admins. Let's secure all of our pages now. Let's refresh this page. Okay, so now our app is secure. Only admins can access the admins pages, which you can see by all these locks, and only the tenants can access the tenant pages. We didn't secure this page for the tenant yet, so let's do that right now. And also the child page below the units page, we're going to secure that only to the tenants. So only the tenants can see that. Okay, now since we're restricting this by role, meaning in the units page, we're restricting this to only show if the user is logged in to a specific role and also only showing units that belong to the logged in user. But when we go here, we're actually restricting this based on the role, not based on the record. So to restrict it also based on a record, we go to the settings and set it to also only show records by a specific field. This gets a little bit tricky and a little bit complicated to explain, but suppose you're logged in as tenant 1 and you go to the details page of a tenant 2. Since the tenant 2 is also part of the same user role, it might show this page if you don't secure it by the record as well. So it's very important to understand that in the details page, you sometimes have to also restrict it by the logged in users field. We haven't added too many. We actually haven't added any admins, but we can easily just do that, add some admins, assign them the admin role, and they'll be able to see all of those pages. This will conclude the first video in how to build a property management app using Tadabase. In our next video, we're going to dive further into advanced functionality, adding some more user customization, and setting up some scheduled tasks and additional things along those lines, as well as also keeping track of all of our leases and just making this app a fully functional property management application. So stay tuned for our next video and happy building. If you have any questions, please contact us at support@tadabase.io. We'd be more than happy to help you with any issues you may come across.